This story from my past happened about 32 years ago in East Texas. My mom and dad divorced when I was 16 years old, and my brothers and I lived with my mom. My dad visited us once in a while, but not really on a consistent basis. He was a gambler, one of the reasons my parents split up, and tended to not come around when he was broke. But on the rare occasion that he won big, he would visit and spend money on us and then disappear again. My dad said he had a job as a shuttle driver for a local hotel. He told my brothers and me that the shuttle driving was just a cover, that he actually worked for organized crime, which he claimed owned the hotel. He said his real job was to drive out to various places in the area to pick up fugitives running from warrants or otherwise wanted by law enforcement, bring them to the hotel to hide, and then later they would move on by means my dad said he didn't know. My dad was always a blowhard and always exaggerating or out-and-out lying, so my brothers and I just blew it off and didn't think much of the claim until something strange happened. My dad disappeared. It was 1988 and I was 22 years old and a college student still living at home. I worked as a full-time disc jockey on the overnight shift, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. at a local radio station. My middle brother was 19 years old, lived in an apartment with a friend, and worked at a nearby Dairy Queen. My youngest brother was 9 and lived at home. One day, my brother called my mom and me and asked us if we knew where my dad was. He says some men came to the Dairy Queen while he was at work and asked him if he'd seen my dad recently. My brother truthfully told them that he hadn't seen or heard from my dad in months, and that he often does that, cuts off contact for months at a time. My brother said these men didn't say who they were but seemed satisfied and left. My brother wondered if these men or anyone had called to talk to us and ask us where my dad was. We also had not heard from my dad in months. The following day, my brother says the men returned to his work, and this time flashed badges and claimed to be FBI agents. He says they were very aggressive and demanded that my brother tell them where my dad was. My brother kept insisting truthfully that he didn't know where my dad was, that the last he heard he worked at a local hotel as a shuttle driver. But the experience upset him, and he called my mom and me again. Upset, my mom called the hotel where my dad worked. The man she spoke to said my dad had disappeared weeks ago, and he had no idea where he went. The following day, my brother was at work when his roommate called and said that someone had apparently been in their apartment. The roommate claimed that when he got home from work, he found the sliding glass door open and the place ransacked, but nothing appeared to be missing. My brother, very upset, went to his apartment and found that in fact, his address book was missing from the breakfast nook, and a teddy bear he recently bought for his son, and a photo of his son were missing from his bedroom. Now, my brother and my mom and I were beside ourselves with anger, fear, and paranoia. We went to the local FBI office to complain that the FBI had done this, and to tell them once and for all, my brother does not know where my dad is. Well, as you might have guessed, the FBI claimed no knowledge of the event and claimed that they were not looking for my dad. They said none of their agents had contacted my brother. Furthermore, when my mother told them my dad had claimed that he worked for organized crime, the FBI would neither confirm nor deny that the hotel had ties to organized crime or that there was an investigation going on. My mom called the hotel again and told the manager that men were looking for my dad, that they were terrorizing my brother, and flat out asked the guy if there was any truth to my dad's claim to be working for organized crime. The man laughed and told her there's no such thing as the mafia. While we were trying to make sense of all these weird details, we kept wondering why my brother was being harassed but not my mother or me. That's when I was reminded of a weird event I had happened to me about 2 or 3 weeks prior. Because I worked overnight, I was often wide awake in the middle of the night on my days off with nothing to do. One night I went to the local cable TV company where my friend worked as a computer system operator to hang out with him for a few hours and BS a little. At about 3:30 a.m., he had a big computer job to do, so it was time for me to go home, so I left. As soon as I pulled out from his company's driveway, a car was immediately behind me, tailgating me. I mean, he was on me so quickly it scared the crap out of me. The car seemed to just appear out of nowhere. He also had his high beams on and was blinding me, and I couldn't make out anything about the car behind me. I couldn't see inside to see how many people were in the car, what they looked like, or anything. I couldn't even see what kind of car it was. I changed the lanes to let the tailgater pass, but he changed lanes with me. I moved again and he again moved. He was tailgating me and blinding me, and now seemed to be following me. I stopped at the intersection and got in the left turning lane with my signal on, and he got behind me. Since there was no other traffic at all anywhere around, when the light changed, I zoomed across the intersection, streaked across all the lanes of traffic into the far right lane, and went through the intersection trying to lose him. He followed me. Now it was absolutely clear. He was for sure following me. I cut into a nearby neighborhood and tried to lose him, but he kept following me anyway. I finally managed to zoom back out to the intersection and crossed over and went to the 7-Eleven at the corner and jumped out and ran inside and yelled to the clerk that someone was following me. As I did, I saw the car that was following me cut through the parking lot of the 7-Eleven, and for the first time I got a look at the car. It was a late model tan-colored 4-door, and there were 2 white guys in it. The clerk just blew me off and said I was exaggerating, that it was probably just kids messing with me and to let it go. I left, but I was still spooked by it, and didn't want to go straight home. I was afraid they might follow me and I didn't want them to know where I lived. So I went to my workplace. I knew that the disc jockey on the air that night would be my friend Paula, so I decided to go visit her on the air for a little while and hang out and calm down. I told her what happened and hung out for about 2 hours. She also felt it was probably just some punks being jerks, and that calmed me down. But when I got home, now over 2 hours since this car harassed me, the damn car was at my house. As I was coming down the street to my apartments and about to turn right, I saw the damn car pull out of my apartments, and as it passed me, the SOBs flashed their high beams on and off at me. It was them, what the hell? I panicked and called Paula at the radio station and told her what happened. She was freaked. She was like, "Oh my God, why would they wait for you at home? Who is this? Oh my God, call the police." I was freaked out as to how they could possibly know where I lived. Why would they wait 2 hours for me? And then when they finally saw me, flash their lights at me and just leave. I mean, what? But now remembering that event and putting it together with my brother's FBI visit and apartment break-in, it seemed obvious that it was all tied together. I hadn't thought about it before, but now I remembered. My car was actually my dad's car. He gave it to me about 2 months earlier when he got a new one. So if someone had been looking for my dad, they might have thought I was him. And when they saw me coming home, realized I'm not him and just left. But who was messing with us and why? Where was my dad? Why are these strange people harassing us? My mom, my brother, and I went to the local police and filed a missing persons report and a complaint. We spoke to a very nice detective. About 5 days later, we got a call from the detective. He had solved the whole strange case. It turns out my dad disappeared because he owed his employers more than $50,000 in gambling debts. The detective confirmed that my dad did work for some unsavory characters, but said they weren't organized crime per se. He had no idea if my dad was shuttling fugitives or not. He said my dad was hiding out in Nevada and that he had spoken to him and he was alive and well but hiding. We asked, then who the hell were those men and why were they bothering my brother? The detective explained that it's not uncommon for unsavory bounty hunters and debt collectors to impersonate law enforcement and call and harass people. My brother asked, how did they get in his apartment? The detective said a sliding glass door is easy peasy to open, and they probably stole the address book hoping it had my dad's contact information in it. They stole the teddy bear and pictures to use to scare my brother, which worked. I asked the detective why the men only harassed my brother and not my mom and me. The detective said, because my dad had used my brother as a reference on his job application at the hotel and gave my brother's address and phone number. The FBI agents probably figured he was close to my dad and either maintained contact with him or if threatened would contact him. So my dad eventually turned back up in town and acted like nothing had ever happened. He never spoke of the incident and we never brought it back up. I guess he got the money he owed them, I don't know. But that's my story, thanks for reading. Back around 1991, I was 20 and newly single from my first love, unemployed and living with 2 friends. I started hanging out with one of my friend's church friends, kind of like street church people, no denomination, basic Christian beliefs, nothing crazy at all. Anyways, there were about 5 of them sharing a pretty big apartment and we'd all hang out there and many people would drop by. Then this one girl, Bernice, dropped by one day, a very pretty girl BTW but around 7 or 8 years older than I was. And when you're 20, that can seem like a pretty significant age difference in my opinion. But whatever. Irrelevant, I suppose. Although she was pretty, I just wasn't immediately into her is my point. Once she first saw me in the apartment though, she would not stop staring at me the entire time she was there. And she was very obvious about it and everyone at the apartment could tell she was acting really creepy towards me. Everyone was kind of looking at her and noticing that she was very fixated. And then I remember them trying to talk to her to get her out of her trance, but she would barely acknowledge anyone else talking to her. There was so much tension in the approximately 1 to 2 hours she was there. I was new among this group and a shy person in general, so I didn't want to come out and ask what the hell is going on, as I'm sure many other people would have. So I just stayed in my corner and kept watching TV and tried to not look in her direction. Then once she finally left and I could breathe again, they eventually admitted to me that she had a few psychological problems, is the best way I can remember their description. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly what they said about her, so I'm trying to keep it simple. After this revelation, her weird behavior made a smidge more sense, but it still didn't point to what this all had to do with her fixation towards me that night. Maybe it was because I was the new guy in the group that night and she was not used to seeing anyone new. Who knows, I thought. Regardless, it was disturbing and made me anxious about seeing her again. So about a week later, I think, I drop in and everyone there is staring at me when I walk through the door. "What's going on?" I ask. "Bernice was here today, and she left a letter that she wrote for you here. She had written a 2 or 3 page letter to me that she just left on the table for anyone else to see and read if they wanted to, which is why they were all acting so freaked out when they told me about it. Anyways, they all told me it wasn't good. Basically, from what I recall, she starts out quite rambling about when she first saw me, she thought I was Jesus. And she goes on and on about it, saying things like, "I'm not 100% sure if you are or not, but I think you are, and I love you with all my heart. Can't stop thinking about you, I just want to be together, etc, etc, etc." I almost crapped myself halfway through reading this thing. And everyone there is just in suspense as they're watching me read it. Once I was done, and I was probably as pale as a ghost, I seem to remember them telling me to not worry about it too much, and that they would make sure she would not come around. In a nice way, mind you, especially if I was there. Then, being in a relatively small town, about a year or more later on, I bump into her at a club. Damn. It was about 2 or 3 days before Christmas, and I said hello to be polite, because she came right up to me. My heart was in my throat, and I imagine I probably started sweating profusely in that instant. I remember her talking to me kind of normal for a few minutes, normal chit-chat about how I was and stuff. So I thought, okay, maybe she came to her senses a little. I was hoping and praying. I let my guard down a little and started to relax. Within 5 minutes of the conversation, though, she drops a bomb and invites me for Christmas supper at her mom's house, with just her and her mother. This may sound like an innocent and possibly nice thing to do under normal circumstances, but not in these circumstances. This was way too much. I was out pretty damn quick. True story. So I, 24 male, have lived on my own for about 2 years now. I have a very small bungalow I'm able to pretty comfortably afford. In this bungalow, I have an attic area. At a guess, I'd say it's about 5 by 5 meters in size, and you can only really stand in there in the very center. Anyway, I work the night shift at a factory. I basically just sit on my phone all night, so I usually get in at around about 8 a.m. I was coming home last Thursday during a heavy storm, and I got into the house and just went to sleep. When I woke up, I went on my phone and saw that I was so tired that I didn't check my notifications. I have a Ring camera outside my door which shows me anyone who would have come to my room. I saw that it had been tripped at 7:42 a.m. I got into the house at around 8:10 to 8:15 a.m. I checked the video and saw that it was a man. He was pressed right up to the door and was fumbling around with the handle. He did this for about 10 seconds until he spotted the camera. Once he did, he very quickly scuttled away. This unsettled me, but didn't entirely creep me out or anything. I got up to go make some food and discovered something in my kitchen. My back window was open. I, of course, instantly began having the thoughts of a home intruder, but slowly chilled out as I convinced myself I had left it open. The rest of the day consisted of this, just noticing small things that didn't seem right and scaring myself. All up until the point, I leave for the shift at 10 p.m. and I was watching some TV at 9 o'clock-ish. I spotted something that made my heart leap into my throat. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see it. My attic entrance was slowly being slid open. I can so vividly remember that I began questioning my sanity. Surely I was just hallucinating or something. I looked over at it and absolutely saw something that made me so much more scared. I saw fingers wrap around the hatch and begin moving it more. I didn't know what to do. I could feel the panic beginning to really get to me. and I wasn't sure if I should leave the house and call the police or if I should try and yell at whoever was up there. I chose a mixture of both. I began dialing 999 and ran to my bedroom where I could lock the door. As soon as I began running, I heard the hatch get almost torn off with the speed they moved it, and I arrived at my bedroom door. I looked down the corridor and watched for a second, seeing only a little slice of the blackness up in my attic, and I saw the human hands still holding on to the sides of my ceiling. I yelled, "Whoever is there, I am calling the police and I have a gun." I do not own a gun. If you take a step out of there, I will effing shoot you. The adrenaline was really making my hands and voice shake, but I tried sounding as tough as I could. Then I saw something that I truly do not think I will ever forget. The hand slipped back into the dark and then he dropped down. I slammed my door shut and locked it as quickly as I could. The call went through and I was able to get on a line with the police, and they dispatched officers to my house. I told them I didn't know if the man was armed or not, and the dispatcher told me to stay on the line. I heard the man walking up to my door and rattling the door handle. He also seemingly went through my cupboards in my kitchen as I heard a lot of commotion there. Truth be told, I don't know why he stayed. I would have just left the house, but he stayed right up until the police came in and arrested him. Apparently, he was a homeless man and was armed with a knife from my kitchen and had recently been seen in the area trying to get into other houses. Truth be told, I'm very frightened to sleep still. I now sleep with my bedroom door locked and all my windows closed. I also sleep with a knife under my pillow. I know that this is unlikely to ever happen again, but I just cannot forget the way he dropped down from my attic. So that's the story of the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I made this account to tell it because I feel like if I write it down like this, it will feel less like a real thing and more like just a story.